Hello and welcome to another lesson with Cloud Solutions Tech. In today's video, I'm going to be exploring an exciting use case of generative AI building an end-to-end application using AWS. But before I dive into the project, let's talk about what generative AI is and why it's such an important skill to have, especially for a DevOps engineer in today's world. So what is generative AI? Generative AI refers to a category of artificial intelligence that creates new content, whether it's image, text, music, or even videos from simple prompts or instruction. You've probably heard of AI models like ChatGPT, which can generate human text, or Stable Diffusion, which can, create highly realistic images. So these models are trained on vast amount of data and can use that knowledge to create new, unique output. So in today's project, I'll be using Amazon Bedrock, which provide access to so many generative AI models like Stable Diffusion, allowing us to create custom images, based on text prompt. Now you might be wondering, why should I, as a DevOps engineer, care about generative AI? Well, as the lines between, traditional software development, cloud infrastructure, and AI are becoming blurred, right? Having generative AI skills can help you integrate machine learning models into your CI/CD pipeline, automate creative workflow, and then optimize resource, management in AI-driven environment. So, for instance, as a DevOps engineer, you'll be able to automate the deployment of AI models, ensure their scalability and reliability in the cloud, and then manage large amounts of data, produced by AI. Plus, with the rise of cloud native solutions like Amazon Bedrock, Amazon SageMaker, and Lambda, it's becoming easier to integrate AI into your infrastructure without needing deep AI expertise. So by learning how to work with generative AI and services like Amazon Bedrock, is more like you are securing your career as a DevOps engineer. So you'll be equipped with the tools, to handle the next generation of AI-driven applications, making you even more valuable in today's IT landscape. With that being said, let's jump into today's project where we are going to use generative AI to build something fun. A system that generates an image of a soccer superstar, Cristiano Ronaldo, celebrating his goal based on a simple text prompt. So that is what we're going to be working on today. So by the end of this tutorial, you will see how easy it is to connect AI power models like Stable Diffusion to your cloud infrastructure using Amazon Bedrock, Lambda, S3, and API Gateway. So I'll walk you through setting up the infrastructure, writing the Lambda function, and testing everything. And by the end, you will see how to turn a simple text prompt into a powerful generative AI workflow in AWS. So our project workflow is going to be that we are going to take the input prompt and send it to Amazon Bedrock Stable Diffusion model, which generates the image. Then the image will be stored in S3, and then we'll create a Presigned URL so users can access the image even if the bucket is private. So we'll also create an API gateway to pass prompts and return generated images URL as well. So before we start implementing the use case, there are a few prerequisites that we need to meet. So the first thing is that no matter what you need to do for whichever use case you want to do, you need to request access to the foundation model from Amazon Bedrock service, because you don't get access to these models by default. So let me go to Bedrock so you can see what I'm saying. So under Bedrock, if you come right here, module access. So as you can see here, I already have access to some of these modules, but AWS keep adding more modules to what we have here. So if there's anyone you want to use that is not available, you can just go ahead and request access for it, and then it'll be available for you to use. And then you can see right here, modify module access. At this point, let's go ahead and create the S3 bucket that we're going to use to store the generated images. All right, so I'll go to S3, create. So let me go ahead and create my bucket. All right, done. So I have my bucket created right here. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to create AWS Lambda function. So I'll just come here. I have Lambda here already. So I'm on the Lambda interface now. So I'll just click on create a function. For the runtime, let's go with Python. I'll go with Python 3.11. All right, so I'll leave every other thing the way it is and just go create function. All right, our Lambda function is ready. So before we continue our project, let's just quickly confirm that the Boto 3 version that we are using the correct version that is required by AWS. So let's go ahead and test the version of Boto that we have. So port 3 to right, so I'll go ahead and deploy. When I successfully updated the functions, all right, that looks good. I'll just go ahead and test it out. We can test. I'll use the events, basic test, save. So let's go ahead and test it out. All right, so you can see here status code 200 successful, and then right here is showing the Boto 3 version and the function looks right there. So 1.34.145. So the next thing now, we need to go ahead and create an IAM role and then also increase the timeout. I'm going to increase the configuration and click on the general configuration right there. Say edit, and then we increase the timeout limits with 1. So the default timeout limit is 3 seconds. So because this Lambda function needs to access the Bedrock service, then also generate an image from there, and then store that image in the S3 bucket, then generate a Presigned URL. So it takes time. So 3 seconds is not going to be enough. That's why I'm increasing it. So once you finish increasing, you can do a save. So once we finish doing that, we need to give Lambda function the adequate permission that it needs to access Bedrock service and then S3 bucket. So I'll go here to the permissions. So the permissions, I'll click on this name right there, this row. So I'll click on here. I'm just going to say add permission, attach policy. So for now, I'm just going to give it admin access, but later on, we are going to modify this admin access. So we say add permission. So you can see it has admin access. So now it can access any resources. So the next thing now is to set up the code for Bedrock invocation for the Lambda function that we are going to use. So let's go ahead and set up our code. So now I'll start writing the code. So the first thing that we need to do is to import Boto 3, because Boto 3 is the main library that we are going to use to connect to other AWS services. So that part we've already done that when we're testing, checking the version. So we don't need to do that anymore. So I'll just remove this part. We don't need this part anymore. So the next thing that I need to do now is to create a client connection with Amazon Bedrock and S3. So every time you are looking for Lambda function to connect any other AWS services using Boto3, the first thing that you need to do is to create a client connection. So now let's go ahead and create a connection for the two services that we are going to be using, Bedrock and S3. So I'll say to Bedrock, and then we'll do the same thing for S3. Next thing that I have to do now is that I have to store the input data, which is the prompt, in a variable. We say print. So before I go find the script, let's just test the work we have done so far. It looks good. So I'll just do a deploy. Okay, successfully updated. All right, so let's test it out through a sample event. So this is just more like a sample event that Lambda function provides. So to carry out your testing. So for the key, let me do this. Since we're using a prompt, so for the key, I'll use prompt. And then for the value, I'll say image save. All right, so let's go ahead and test this out. So you can see right here, it has printed the event as image of a Rolls Royce, so which means it was successful. So based on the prompts that we defined here, as you can see, so based on this prompt, so the next thing that I'm going to add to our code here, we need to create a request syntax to access the Bedrock service itself. So I'm going to use an invoke model to do that. So for this, I need to go to the Bedrock documentation, which I have right here. So we're going to be using this invoke model right here. So for the request that we want to do, so this is what it should look like right here. So we have a variable response right here, and then you'll have all these bodies right here. You can see content, asset, module ID, and the rest right here. Also response. For the parameters, let's look at the documentation again. So the first one, we have the body, we have the content type as well. So let's start with the content type. So for the content type, I'll leave it as default. Let me see, equals, copy this guy right here, applications as JSON. Then the next thing, we're going to add the model ID, which we have right here. This one. So to get the model ID, we need to go to the Bedrock console. So let me go to Bedrock. I have Bedrock open somewhere here. So when you get to Bedrock, you go to Images, and then it says Select Model. So we're going to be going with Stability AI here and Apply. So now we have it right there. Earlier on, we used image of a Rolls Royce. So I'll say image of a Rolls Royce and say run. Alright, so Bedrock has generated image of a Rolls Royce for us. So I'll come here on these three dots right here. I'll click on this dot and say View API Request. So from here now, I can just go ahead and copy the model ID, so you can see the model ID right there. So this is the model ID that we need. So I'll just copy from here, stability right up to version 1. Alright, so let's come here and paste it. So again, this is going to be a string as well. So paste it here. So the next thing that we need to add now is the body. So let's come back to the documentation. We go here, inference parameters. So right here, you can go to Stability AI module right here. Alright, I'll go with this. So let's go ahead and add the body. So what we have so far, let's print it out and see what our response will be. So deploy. So since our deployment was successful, so let's go ahead and test it out. So you can see right there, we're having the function logs. We can have our response right here, which looks good. And then here in the function logs right there, you can see that it's also giving us a response right here. So for us to see these function logs properly, let's go to monitor and then we can go to CloudWatch logs so we can see. Alright, so let me just go with this log group right here. That way we can see it better. And you can see image of the Rolls Royce. So all our response metadata is right there with all the details, and we can also see the body right here. So everything looks good. So the next thing that we need to do now is to retrieve the value of the body from the dictionary response, then convert that streaming the body to byte using JSON logs, and then print out the response as well. So let's go back to our code. So let's go ahead and retrieve from dictionary. So we don't need this anymore for now. And then right here we pass the key. So also let's print it out as well to make sure the response is correct. And there's a typo right here. It's supposed to be underscore. So I'll do a deploy. Successful. Okay, let me go ahead and test again. We have a response. So the next step in our code now is to retrieve the data with artifact key and then import the base64 and then also decode from the base64 as well. And then we load the Bedrock final image. Finally, we print. So before we print, we need to import base64. So I'll add that at the top here to import base64. Okay. So let's go ahead and deploy. Once successful, then the next thing, let's test it out. Good. All right. So it works as expected. This will also be recorded in the CloudWatch logs as well. So let's go to our CloudWatch. So we can see we have our response right here. So what we need to do now, so we need to store this inside of our S3. So let me go back to the code. So let's update our code. So now we need to upload those files to S3 using a put object. So let's go ahead and add the code. And this for those three, we are using put object. So for here, we need to provide three arguments, which is the bucket name, the body, and then the key. So the first one, which is the bucket, copy the bucket name here earlier on. So this is our bucket name right here. So next thing is to add the body. We add the key. So the key, we don't have the key right now. So let's do this. Let's add the key right here. Let's need the variable for it. We're going to use. So since we cannot auto-generate the file name or the key name in S3, so what we need to do now, I'm going to go ahead and create a unique name. So that unique name, that is what we are going to use. So then I will now append the year, month, date, and time so that it's unique. Image. Image name. Alright, so one more thing to do at the top, I need to also import the date and time. So we say import date time. So for each of the image that will be generated through Bedrock, we will have a unique name for it. So you can see right there. So you have the year, the month, the date, the minute, and the second that it was generated. So each and every one of them that are going to be generating, they'll all be unique. All right, so let's go ahead and try this out. Let's deploy. Okay, deployment was successful. Alright, and then let's go ahead and test it out. And you can see we have some response right here. So now that our test is successful, what should happen now is that since we already run the Lambda function, there should be an image that is generated from Bedrock. Alright, and then it should be stored in our S3 bucket, and then it should have this particular name right here that we have used right here with the current year, date, month, date, minute, seconds. So let's go to our S3 bucket and see if it has been generated. So let's go to our S3, let me refresh. So this object right here has been added to this S3 bucket that we created. So you can see right here, image name as we have provided in our Lambda function right here. Alright, so let's go ahead. And then this is today's date right here, today's 27th. And then right here, we'll click on it and download the image. So you can see right there, the image is being downloaded 24-56-14. Alright, you should have that in my download. So this is it right here. So what I'm going to do, I need to rename and then add .png. So before I open the image, so let's look at our prompts and what our prompt is supposed to be generating. So we can see here the prompt is supposed to generate image of a Rolls Royce. All right, so we have our downloaded image right there. So if I click on this guy, we should have an image of a Rolls Royce. You see, this is what we downloaded right here. We come to my downloads right here, 24-56-14. This is it right here. So we can see we have an image of a Rolls Royce which was generated for us. It works perfect. So the image of a Rolls Royce has been generated based on the prompt that we provided right here. Based on the prompts that we provided. So if we change the prompts, then what happens? Then we have a different image again. So let's change the prompt and then see what happens. So let's say image of a beach with people in the background. So let's see what it generates for us. From truth. Let's go ahead and save. Alright, let's run another test. Alright, good. So we got the response. So now let's go to our S3. We should have another image again. We have a new one right here. Let's go ahead and download. So this is 24-03-03. .png. Alright, so you can see it works as expected. So we can see what we set in the prompt. Let's go back. So we said image of a beach with people in the background, and that is exactly what we have right here. So this is an image of a beach with people in the background. So it works as expected. So with what we have done, we have been able to accomplish most of the tasks that we want to do. So we've created the Lambda function. We've been able to integrate with Bedrock stability. We've gotten the image. We've stored the image as well in the S3 bucket. So now we need to generate the S3 Presigned URL that we can send to AWS API, and through that, the users can be able to access it. Alright, so let's go ahead and edit our code to generate Presigned URL. And then I need to add 4 parameters to it. I'll say get object name. And the key. So outprint. Okay, so let me go ahead and deploy. Alright, deployment was successful. So let's go ahead and test it. But before we test, let's go ahead and change the prompt to something else. So 3. Let's try something new. Let's say image of resident in your office. Let's see if we can generate that. Save. Now let's go ahead and test. So now it should be able to give us a presigned URL, which if we hit on the browser, we should be able to access it through there. Alright, so we have the URL, which is this long line right here. So we just have to copy it. It's a long line. Alright, so we've been able to copy that. So let's put it on the browser. Let's paste. And when you paste it, you do enter. You can see it's saving the image with this right here, 24-18-52. This is it right here, 24-18-52. Alright, so let's start .png. Alright, so it gave us the picture of the Oval Office. So the way it has been able to generate a presigned URL for us, we've gotten the image. If we refresh our bucket, you should have them in the bucket as well. So you can see right there, we have them in the bucket here as well. So now that I've been able to generate from Lambda, so we are good to go on this part. So the only thing that we need to now do is to create an API gateway and then integrate it with Lambda and then try it out on Postmate. If you have Postmate, I'll show you. So let's go ahead to our API gateway where we need to create an API gateway for this project. So before we go ahead and create our API that we're going to be using for the project, let's create one more. So Ronaldo. Alright, so let's save and then run the test. Right, so let's put the presigned URL. So this is our actual project, so we're going to integrate it with our API gateway. Right, so let's copy. Put this in the browser. So that is 24-29.6. .png. Save. Right, so we have image of Cristiano right here. So what I'm going to do now, I want to create a REST API gateway and then connect it to our Lambda function. So before I do that, let's quickly go back to configuration. Let's go to this role that we attach to this Lambda function. So earlier on, I gave this function administrator access, which is too broad. So that's not good. So we need to update this role. So I'm going to remove this policy. Bedrock full access. And also add S3 full access. Alright, so let me go ahead and add permissions. All right, so we have Bedrock full access and S3 full access. So the next thing for us now, we need to go to API gateway. All right, so for this project, it says choose an API type. So for this project, I'll be going with REST API. So I'll do build CR7 API. And then for the API endpoint, just leave it the way it is like this. Let's say create. So for our API gateway now, the first thing we create the resources. So the next thing we want to go over the method. So in our case, we are going to be using the get method. That is what we're going to be using. So the next thing right here, we're going to say create resource. So create resource. So this has been created right here. So we'll go ahead and create a method. So for the method, I'll leave it as lambda function here, and I'll say get method. Our integration type, which is our lambda function. So I need to go ahead and copy our lambda function name already. So create method. Now that we've created our method request, so now we need to go to the URL query, for the string parameter, and then add an input parameter to that. So once we finish doing that, we'll now enable request validation. So the first thing we're going to do in this method request, click on edit. So right here, URL query string parameter, and I'll say add query string. So here we're just going to use a simple prompt, and then say required. Now this is our prompt that we're going to pass as an input through the REST API gateway to the Lambda function, which will also appear as an event to the Lambda function. So once we do that, we come here to our request validator, and then here in this request validator, you want to go with validate query string parameters and headers right here. So we want to make sure that when this REST API is invoked, that it has this query string parameter called prompt that we have added right here. All right, so I'll go ahead and save. So the next thing that we're going to do now, we need to come into this integration request and then add some properties into it. So go into integration request, edit. Right, so come here to mapping templates, say add mapping templates. So for the content type right here, we'll leave it at application/JSON. And then for the template body, I'm going to add this. So prompt. So this means that the prompt that we are going to get here from the REST API will be converted and passed as a prompt in the event in the Lambda function. So this is a standard function. All right, so I save. All the changes that we need to do has been completed. So anytime you make any changes right here in the API gateway, you need to deploy. So new stage. So right there. So the stage, I can call the stage prod. Let's say deploy. So now let's go to the resources. So go to get. So let's test it out and see if this works. So I'll click on test. So for the query string parameter, the parameter that we had was prompt. So let's do something very simple. So we can say image. So now let's click on test. So we have status code 200 and then we have the body. We have this long code right here, which is the Presigned URL. So let's copy. So let's place the link on the browser. Alright, so we have a new image generated from our API gateway, so which is 24-4950. Alright, let's go ahead. So that's it right here. And PNG. There you go. Alright, so we have an image of a beautiful mansion, which is what we have added in our query string right here, that we need an image of a beautiful mansion. So as you can see, so it works as expected. You can see right here, we use the prompt image of a beautiful mansion. So everything has worked, Lambda, S3, API gateway. So now we want to test it with our Postmate. Since everything that we have done in AWS, everything works as expected. So this is my Postmate. So Postmate is a free tool. So this is used for API testing. So if you want to test API, Postmate is a very good tool for testing APIs. So I'll open a new window here. So our method right here we are using. So we have different method of testing. So I'm going with get. So now to get the URL that you can run. So let's go back to our API, go back to stages. So instead of our pro stage, we'll click on this, and then we'll click on this get right here. So it should give us this invoke URL. So that is what we're going to use. So I'm just going to paste it here. So the next thing, we have to provide the key that we're going to use. So our key is going to be the prompt that we used earlier. So that's going to be our key. So the next thing that we're going to use now, we are going to add our value for the prompt, which is. So now we have the prompt, we have the method, and then we have the URL. Let's go ahead and send it. So you can see right here, we have got the status code 200, which means it was successful. And then we also have a body, which is the Presigned URL, and you can see CR7 image S3 was also saved at this time and date. You can see right there. So let's copy this URL. So we have a new image. PNG. So image of Cristiano Ronaldo celebration. All right, there you have it, and that's it. So in this video, I've walked through an entire end-to-end process of generating an image of Cristiano Ronaldo, the soccer star, image of a mansion, image of people at the beach, different types of image, using Amazon Bedrock and the Stability AI diffusion model. We started by creating an S3 to store our images, and then built an AWS Lambda function to interact with Amazon Bedrock's AI models and then generate our images. After that, I was able to integrate it with API Gateway to allow users to submit prompts and view their result via a Presigned URL. And finally, we tested everything as well with Postmate and then successfully retrieved the generated images. So before we wrap up, let's just look at some key takeaway from this project. So generative AI is revolutionizing how we interact with technology. So in this project, we saw how easily you can create a highly realistic image, from just a simple text prompt using foundation models like Stability Diffusion, which is part of the growing family of generative AI models available on AWS. This project also demonstrates how you can build an end-to-end application using foundation models like the one that we use in AWS Bedrock with just a few services like Lambda, S3 and API gateway, and you can integrate powerful AI models into your cloud application easily. And also generative AI and AWS open up endless possibilities. Either you are, generating images, creating text, or even building an advanced machine learning applications. The ability to combine AI and DevOps skills can lead to powerful solution in real-time scenario. So as a DevOps engineer, we are not only responsible for managing infrastructure and deployment pipelines, we are also on the front line of integrating emerging technologies like AI into production environment. So by learning how to work with generative AI models and incorporating them into cloud applications, you can, ensure that your systems are scalable, secure, and ready to handle the growing demand of AI-powered tools. So this is how you can build an end-to-end application using foundation models. So these models are trained on vast data sets, enabling them to generate outputs that would otherwise require huge time and effort to create manually. So with services like Amazon Bedrock, you can easily access these powerful models without needing to build them from scratch. So whether you are automating creative workflow, generating personalized content for users, or even building AI-powered microservices, this project showcases how to leverage AWS services to integrate cutting-edge AI technology into your DevOps workflows. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And feel free to leave any questions in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help. Stay tuned for more hands-on projects in cloud computing, DevOps, AI, Linux, right here on this channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.